Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful evening at Rock Bottom Ranch. Welcome to a site of the Aspen Center for Environmental Studies. For over 50 years, ACES has been educating for environmental responsibility. And from the very early days when Jody and Tom Cardamone were leading us on this journey, they recognized that food needed to be a part of the environmental conversation. Fast forward 50 years, and we now know that agriculture contributes more carbon emissions than all the planes, trains, and automobiles combined globally. It's a thing that we need to address, and it's a very scary thought in the beginning, but one of the most optimistic things is agriculture, when managed through a regenerative lens, has the ability to sequester carbon in addition to creating good jobs and healthy communities. A lot of the practices at this ranch are inspired by nature and natural cycles. A lot of those practices were handed down to us or practiced a long time ago by indigenous peoples, and they're often uncredited. So we look towards some of the practices of this area that led and inspired a lot of the practices that we are now kind of seeing a resurrection in. Our moderator this evening is Alyssa Barsanti. Alyssa joined Rock Bottom Ranch in 2015 and for a number of years led our team as the agriculture manager and helped contribute to the practices on this property as well as the development of the Farmer Training Program. Alyssa in 2021, this year, departed from her role as agriculture manager to start her own operation, Marigold Livestock Company, just down the road on Hook Spur Road and at Emma Open Space. Alyssa, do you want to kind of take it from here? Thank you so much for the farmers for being here. Thank you so much, Alyssa, for leading us through this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome again. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm super excited to hear this conversation with this season's ag crew. And for me, it's been particularly exciting to watch the Farmer Training Program take hold this season. In March, we welcomed 4 apprentices for an 8-month-long apprenticeship that included some enhanced educational opportunities with like workshops, presentations, demonstrations on top of the on-the-ground training. And so in your program, there's a little piece of paper that kind of outlines the additional trainings we've been doing this year. And so it's been exciting what we've done and what will come in the next 6 or so weeks. In addition to the apprenticeship program, ACES also created an ag steward program this season. And so the ag stewardship program was a few positions that were 10 weeks long, that were part-time over the summer to allow high school, college, and other community members the opportunity to dip their toe into agriculture, but not necessarily commit 8 months to it. And so we had 3 phenomenal stewards this summer, Sophia Jacober, Sam Waller, and Lily Shale. Tonight, we have the opportunity to have a conversation with our full-time agriculture team. I'm eager to hear their perspectives, but before we dive into that, I just wanted to take a moment to thank our stewards, Sam, Sophia, and Lily. In addition, our community programs coordinator, Kitty Winograd, and all the other ACES staff who have contributed to the production this season. It takes a lot to steward the land, grow food, and maintain this property, and so there's been a lot of hands that have made it so successful. Lastly, we want to thank all of you guys for your support in our farmer training program and coming tonight to hear us all speak. I'm personally super proud of this farmer training program, and I'm excited to watch it to continue to grow and become even better. At the end of our questions, we will take questions from the audience. And so if you want to jot them down on the little pamphlet in the middle of your program, that would be appreciated, and we will gather them at the end. If you need a pen, you can just wave your hand, and we'll get you one. Great. Well, first, we're going to start with our apprentices. Thank you guys for being here tonight as well. ACES and our community recognize that the season has been long and busy, and it's winding down, and so you're probably a little low in energy, but we appreciate you spending your evening here with us. So to start us off, if you can introduce yourself, share your pronouns, your position at Rock Bottom Ranch, and how long you've been farming.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shannon, and I'm a livestock apprentice here. I use she, her pronouns. And how long I've been farming for? This is my first full season farming. I have previously had farming experience through woofing and through a pretty part-time internship in the suburbs of Denver.
Hi, everyone. My name is HOLLIS VANDERLINDEN. I use they, them pronouns. I am a vegetable apprentice here at Rock Bottom, and this is my first full season farming as well, but the past 3 summers I have helped out on a 1-acre farm in South Dakota.
Hi, my name is Hannah Pike. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also a vegetable apprentice. This is my second full season of vegetable farming. Before that, I farmed wine grapes, which is like not really farming sometimes. And before that, I kind of helped out on farms in the summer since I was just a little kid.
Hey, I'm Ray Mooney. I use he, him pronouns, a livestock apprentice here at the ranch. And this is my first full season. I had about a half season last summer on a cattle ranch up in Vermont. So this will be my first full season.
Awesome. Wonderful. So as everyone on the stage knows, and probably folks in the audience, farming isn't for the faint of heart. And there are a multitude of career directions that we all could have gone. Hannah, can you start us off and share what led you into choosing to farm this season and the previous seasons?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned, I farmed vegetables last season in New Hampshire, and it was on a different scale. It was about a 4-acre operation with a lot more tractor work. And so I kind of learned from that experience that I really did enjoy vegetable farming, but that wasn't really scratching my itch for conservation. And so I was really interested to come to this ranch in particular to learn about the intersection of conservation and agriculture and how my practices can not only just be producing food for my community, but also be investing in soil health. So I really wanted to learn about a low-till, high-intensity vegetable system like they have here at the ranch.
Yeah, so I don't come from an agricultural background. My family's not farmers. I didn't study ag or anything directly related at university. And it wasn't until my last year did I realize that this is something I wanted to pursue. So I had got my feet wet in Vermont, and the logical next step, without having that street cred or any degree to the name, was to seek out an apprenticeship. And from the literature that I had kind of skimmed and read, and what I had learned about regenerative ag and livestock management, the footprint here at the ranch was really something that grabbed me in. I really wanted to be back in Colorado. I went to CU, and just everything that the apprenticeship has provided and what they had listed has exceeded my expectations. So it's really been a foundational cornerstone to the pathway in agriculture for myself.
For me, I spent the last 3 years working for a food sovereignty nonprofit in South Dakota, in a Sichanga Lakota community, and I was helping to manage a beginning farmer program, just kind of on the administrative side, and working part-time in their farm as well. And just after helping other individuals kind of get back to their own power of producing their own food for themselves and their community, I really felt that it was important for myself and the ways that I wanted to contribute to and interact with my own communities to gain that knowledge for myself. And also just, I love food. And food has always been a way that I found to connect with my friends and my community in meaningful and like genuine, deep ways. And so, and I'm an outdoorsy, active person, so getting my hands on the dirt just made sense for me.
Yeah, I've always loved animals, and that was a really big draw of working here was to be able to work with animals and learn how to properly care for the land using animals. I thought that was incredibly amazing. But my background was more in academia, and I was introduced to agriculture through that lens more than anything. And I became super burnt out with school and was pretty over it. Just wanted to get out. And I think coming to ACES, I really wanted to have that experience with animals and farming, and also see agriculture through a more hands-on lens versus what I had been taught in books and whatnot, and kind of use the background knowledge that I had to come here and stack upon that knowledge. And yeah, I think also being able to not only practice farming, but also take opportunities such as this to kind of use that more academic background and share with the community some of our knowledge that all of us apprentices have.
Wonderful. Shannon, do you mind continuing and sharing with us how farming has adjusted your perspectives?
Yeah, I really like this question because I think it can be kind of tackled from a lot of different angles. Yeah, I've always loved learning because it changes your perspective on the world around you and the way in which you interact with your environment. I remember just like learning in school, in like science class, like just that things were made of molecules and atoms existed. And like just that like mind-boggling concept that you don't know until you know and you're taught it. And then going outside and being like, holy smokes, like everything's made of like that tiny little thing, like everything out here. Yeah, I think like just learning concepts is really cool. So here I've just learned a plethora of knowledge that I've been able to really like change how I look at things. For instance, like rotational grazing or flood irrigation. I'll be biking down or driving even across different parts of Colorado and be like, oh, like I could manage that land using like ruminants and cattle, and like that's where my mind is more drawn, and can spot out like flood irrigation, which is the kind of irrigation we do here at the farm, and be like, oh, cool, they use flood irrigation too. So it kind of just like has shifted the way in which I just view and interact with my external worlds. And I think kind of with that too, we work in such like large geographic scales. We're always outside, which was kind of different from me being in school and working at a restaurant. You kind of exist in these smaller, more confined spaces, and while you like may go for a run or a walk or a hike and be able to experience beautiful open landscapes, it's different existing in it every single day, and has kind of changed just my relationship with like the spatial plane around me, and kind of like this internal map that's been created in my head of the ranch and beyond, and this whole valley too, which I think is really cool. Like it's way different than when I came here and kind of like had walls up around what you see right now, whereas now I can like picture it as a whole. So yeah, I think it's really cool in that sense how this experience has changed my perspective.
How farming has changed my perspectives. There's a myriad answers that I could give to this question, and I'm not going to spend all day, but from how I see myself as a consumer in the economy, being like what Shannon said, being more in touch with your surroundings, like the sun right now. But one thing specifically that I wanted to touch on with this question is something that's a little bit it's shunned or it's kind of put in the corner in our society, that farming has really brought to life with me, and it's the antithesis of life, death. You know, something that we don't really want to talk about a lot, but something that's inevitable and unavoidable in farming. You know, whether it's cropping or especially with livestock, the threat of predators or health issues or you know, just natural causes. I've seen way more of it this year than I ever have in my life. And at first, a little taken aback, but once you get to spend the time with the animals and just you're with them day in and day out, it becomes less of something that you want to push away, and it becomes more of something appreciative of the cycle of life. And inherent in the cycle of life is the end of it. And so it's just been something humbling to be a part of, and just it's just been yeah, humbling and grounding to be here on the ranch and have to deal with those circumstances. And still, when I call family and friends and tell them of how my day went, it's, oh, I don't want to hear that. Well, that's how my day went. That's what happens. People are, you know, so out of touch with the how their food's produced. I mean, we're here at rock bottom. The numbers that we're producing are infinitesimally smaller than, you know, all of the goods you're going to buy at the supermarket. So if you're, you know, a little scared by a phone call where I tell you we had 12 birds have their last evening, what goes on elsewhere is a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. That just sort of changed my thought about what I was going to say as well. I think that this question about perspectives has so many answers, like you've already heard. But when I think about what's changed for me and my understanding since I've been farming, it's really kind of my perspective on myself. And before I farmed, I was not a sporty kid. I don't play team sports. Don't throw a ball at me. I can't catch it. I was really nerdy and just hung out with my books. And so for most of my life, it never occurred to me that I would enjoy doing work with my hands, or that I could bring any value to a job that wasn't purely academic maybe. And so engaging in this kind of work that really kind of pulls you out of your head and brings you, it really grounds you and makes me feel like a really capable person, which I think I probably was the whole time, right? If I really put my effort to it, I could have changed a tire. I just hadn't tried. And so it's really given me a lot of autonomy in that way, to know that if there's a problem, I can fix it. And that's kind of gone pretty far for me. And I think a lot of that has come from being able to connect with the work and be on a team, because not being a team sports person, I never thought I could really enjoy a physical team environment, which I absolutely love now, to get to feel a part of it, a team. But it's not competitive. We're all on the same team. We're all going for the same thing. And a lot of that, I think, comes from the work, but it also comes from being outside all the time and being connected with my environment. And, when I started farming, I saw more insects, and even if they were pests, and, amphibians and birds than I had ever seen in my life. And I was like, well, if I had been outside this whole time, right? And it really just opened my eyes to the world around me and how I wasn't just an observer of it, but I was a participant in it. And that's really helped me to feel a part of not only my food community and my work community, but kind of my ecological community as well, which has been really, really exciting.
For me, my involvement in the food systems, whether it's farming or as an ag-adjacent supporter role, it's really changed my perspective of how I see the ability to produce food as a source of power and autonomy as individuals, but also more importantly, like as a community. And I feel very privileged to have been able to gain that perspective in the past few years, like working with folks who in a lot of indigenous communities have been stripped of that power over the history of our country. And so I find that it's really important to gain that knowledge for myself and also to support others in gaining that knowledge. Because when I think about our society and how I want to contribute to it, I think food is such a beautiful way to give people their power back, because it can be something as foundational as just like having a meal to eat on any old day and just like getting through that day and having something good for you in your belly. But it can also be, a source of creativity, a tie to your culture, a tie to your past, a tie to your family. And so I think it just is this beautiful intersection. And being able to participate in that and like gain this knowledge here at ACES ACES at Rock Bottom, where I can like have that foundational knowledge that nobody can ever take away from me, and that I can continue to pass on to other people and support other people, and gaining that knowledge means the world to me. So
Super cool. So farming has its ups and downs constantly. Ray, can you share with us what a good day feels like?
Yeah. So I'm a really task-oriented person. Actually, wait. I make a to-do list every day, and I keep it in my back pocket. And so what a good day for me looks like is checking things off the list. Just the act of scratching it and moving on to the next thing. I love productivity, efficiency, and so setting up cattle, moving them, fixing the waterers, getting sheep their mineral, fixing the rabbit tractor. Just I love the diversity of tasks here at the ranch, but I like getting them done more. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think my answer is very similar to that, less notebook oriented, but similar. I also really value the diversity of tasks that farming allows for, especially in vegetable farming. I have found that I love that I get to work with such a variety of plants every day that all have different needs and requirements, and I think that kind of keeps me on my toes and helps me to continue to learn. Especially coming from having worked in a monoculture before this. Wine grapes are beautiful, but they're still it's like a pretty monoculture. And so there would be a task like pruning, and that would be the only task that happens for a month, right? And here, if we need to prune some tomato plants, that's our morning, but there's 5 other things we're gonna do in the afternoon with 5 different plants. And I really appreciate that kind of diversity of tactile tasks, but also what that allows for me to develop and learn about plant needs and about food, and kind of keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, I love problem solving, and I think that is a really big part of a lot of our days. A lot of days that can go to the worst day, worst work day, or it could be the absolute best work day, depending on the problem and depending on how you solve it. Yeah, just figuring out the needs of the animals and being able to think critically about whatever situation it is that they need, and do that task for this creature that needs you in order to survive, and live a happy, healthy life, and then provide back to the community, is just really special for me. So any day, which is kind of every day that I'm doing that, but any day where I get a problem and I solve it and things are smooth and working, is a good day for me. Any day that I can see the cows too, really, and the sheep, all of them. I don't know.
Wonderful. I personally, a highlight of this season for me has been able to
Hollis didn't answer that one.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Hollis, go for it. Didn't mean to cut you off.
okay. I feel like these guys said most of it. I'll be brief. I think a good day for me, what I love about farming is that it's not only it's physical, it's also mental and it's also emotional. It has everything kind of all tied up into one. And so a good day for me is like when I'm, working alongside these amazing people and solving problems, going around feeling like I'm coming up with solutions for things. And it's like a big puzzle, and we gotta, shift around all the pieces and make sure that it fits together. And sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. And also when the turkeys run up to me and they're all flapping their wings and they're so sweet. So, yeah.
Wonderful. So a highlight for me this season has been able to participate with the educational side of these folks' apprenticeship. And so, Hollis, do you mind sharing with us a highlight of your time as an apprentice thus far?
Yeah, I would love to. This question was difficult for me because I'm not necessarily so much of like a highlight person. But I think the lack of like one specific highlight really speaks to this program because it's so well-rounded. I feel like we've been able to address like hard skills, soft skills, like farming related skills, like not specifically farming related, welding and carpentry, and just the sense that I'm coming out of this feeling like such a well-rounded and capable person is like the reason that I wanted to do it in the first place, and that I felt so drawn to Rock Bottom. Sorry. And yeah, and I knew that from the minute that I first talked to these guys in my first interview. And so, all of those individual skills and workshops that we've had have all been highlights for me, but just the general sense of accomplishment and that it's important here for us to not only be good farmers, but also capable people and like complete human beings who have also good interpersonal skills and ties to community and everything that's important. Yeah.
To go off of that, because similar, I have really enjoyed the apprenticeship program, specifically because the apprenticeship program here is really decisive. You can see everywhere in small-scale agriculture apprenticeship programs on the internet, and they're not made the same. And so I was really drawn to this program because it's decisive. It's not just you learn by doing, but you learn because we're teaching you and we care about your educational goals, and we're going to teach you workshops and presentations and farm tours and skills that make you a farmer and also a well-rounded human and land steward, like Hollis mentioned. And I think that that's something that I really value about Rock Bottom Ranch because it's like a way that people have other people work for them, absolutely, and say that they're learning by doing. And I think that you can have the most beautiful agrarian dream about wanting to be a farmer, but if the only way that you can make that work is by not paying people well and exploiting them, then that's not a good dream, and you need to drop that dream. And so a program that really doesn't just want us for our labor, but wants us to become humans and land stewards and see us really succeed is, yeah, it's really nice you guys want us to be humans.
A highlight for me this season has definitely been customer interaction, specifically at farmers markets. I love when people are asking me questions about the meat cuts or the eggs. That's the trailer that Livestock crew usually mans, is the eggs and the meats. And to be able to hand somebody a chicken that we harvested 2 days prior, and we did the slaughter, and it's going to the consumer, and the only transport was from here to the farmer's market. I just think that's wild, because usually there's so many middlemen. And to see the smile on their faces or a returning customer is really rewarding. So definitely human interaction.
Yeah, I'd echo everything that y'all said. I think just the confidence in my own self and my abilities and my autonomy has been a really big highlight. Everything that we've learned has only added to the oh yeah, I can do that kind of mentality. So I think that's been really cool. Just a little bit more confidence every day.
Yeah, I think it's been super cool to watch you all be exposed to different skills, and some of you just pick it up beautifully the first time and are like, oh my gosh, I can back up a trailer flawlessly, or like, look at those perfect welds. And to just be able to like watch how we can grow when we're exposed to these different skills and traits that you don't learn going to school or in other workplaces. So that's been really cool and inspiring to watch. Well, wonderful. Thank you, apprentices, for chatting with us. We are going to rotate our direction to, yeah, and if you guys want water, grab it. Awesome. So we're going to rotate our attention to our leads and ag manager. And so thanks again to you guys for being here and for leading our systems here at the ranch. And to start us off, if you can share your name, your pronouns, how long you've been farming, your position, and how long you've been at Rock Bottom Ranch. I can help you remember if you forget.
All right. My name is Jennifer GHIGIARELLI. I've already forgot. I am the livestock lead here at Rock Bottom Ranch. I'm rounding out my 3rd season managing the livestock at Rock Bottom Ranch. This is my 9th season farming overall, which is crazy. I don't know when that happened. Did I miss anything? Oh, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
Hi, my name's Juliette Maufoy. I use she, her pronouns. My position is vegetable lead. I've been farming for around 6 seasons, majority in education settings, bridging agriculture and education. And I'm really excited about this new way that we've been bridging agriculture and education with our farmer training program. And I started in March of this year.
My name is MARIAH FOLEY. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I am the ag manager here at Rock Bottom Ranch. I came to Rock Bottom Ranch in early 2019, so this is my 3rd season and my first in my current role. And I got my first farm job 9 years ago and have kind of been blazing towards it ever since.
Awesome. Thank you. So to start us off, Juliette, did you expect to find yourself here farming at Rock Bottom Ranch?
Never. I grew up in Basalt. I have vivid memories of coming to Rock Bottom Ranch as a kid and walking through the tall grass and seeing the goats, and it was all very exciting. But moving to your hometown is a hard thing to do. And I love agriculture, I love working with my hands, and when this position showed up, it felt like a dream come true, but also just utterly bizarre to be moving home. But the opportunity to mix education and agriculture and land stewardship was just too good to pass up. And I feel so blessed to now be home and close to my family and being back in the community that I grew up in.
Also, absolutely not. I didn't grow up thinking that farming was a possible career for myself. It was nothing, just not viable. And I certainly didn't think as a vegan for several years that I'd be livestock farming at that many years later. But certainly once I got into agriculture and I was like, this is absolutely it. It makes a lot of sense that I've ended at Rock Bottom Ranch. I kind of started things in like a sustainable ag realm. So doing things sustainably, which was really nice, but I've always had a drive to be like, okay, but what's next? What can we do better? And so Rock Bottom Ranch has been an awesome place for me to land, where we have all these really intense diversified systems, and we are doing things in this regenerative model beyond sustainability. And perennial-based agriculture with livestock is really my passion. So it makes a lot of sense now.
I think that I am definitely living my 15-year-old self's wildest dreams as far as what I'm doing each day. I, in adolescence got into thinking about my food and the impact it has on the natural world around me, and kind of shifted broadened a love for the environment. And I grew up in Colorado, and just my love for the mountains broadened that to kind of think about the impact my food choices were making, and that spiraled to going through college, realizing in college that like I didn't want to just like study and support farmers, that I really wanted to be on the production side of things, and I kind of dove into it, and I'm really happy I landed here. But yeah, I think it was definitely like a goal even before I was like confident enough to like state it as a goal, when I was like 16, 17.
Awesome. So the three of you guys have a lot of experience and knowledge under your belt with your years of farming. Do you have any advice for an aspiring farmer? Jen, you can start us off.
Yeah, how long do we have? I think a couple things that come to mind now that I'm 9 years deep. I think don't make farming your only identity. Have hobbies. Be a good friend and a family member, because that stuff's going to matter a lot if this falls through, and it's farming. I think not placing all of your worth also into your productivity has been an important lesson for me. I feel like in my first years, I felt like I had to overhaul and put in 70-hour work weeks to like be taken seriously or take myself seriously, and that's just not sustainable long term, and we don't need to martyr our emotional selves, physical selves, mental selves for this cause, because then we won't last long term. And then I think my last piece would be, there's so many people and schools of thought in agriculture trying to sell you ideas, and there's certainly like a lot of merit to all of these different schools of thought. But I think one thing I tell beginning farmers is to not get too dogmatic. Don't kind of adhere to one thing. Like we have things like permaculture, biodynamics, the regenerative movement, holistic management, and they all have really valuable things to teach. But I think kind of picking and choosing like what speaks to you and your personal goals will get you a lot farther than just like diving all in on one. And even as like somebody involved in more regenerative land forward movements, also not discounting the experience and knowledge of even our not so often thought of peers in like conventional agriculture as well, because they have a lot to teach us too. And I think by bridging these gaps between these two schools, we'll progress forward the most.
Yeah, my advice is very similar to Jen's. I think that having a farming community is wildly important, to have support behind you and people that you can troubleshoot with, and at the end of a long day just complain, and then also like have people to turn to share your bounty with, and to share the highs and the lows, I think is really important. There is a vast amount of knowledge that people who farm in specific areas have, and going to those ties and learning what they've already learned is really important. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can learn from each other, and sharing that information is really important and really beautiful. And for me, having that community and being able to talk through things with other people, I think makes all of our success even greater, but also allows for us to succeed as a community instead of as individual farmers or an individual farm.
Yeah, I think farming is a job where you will never know enough. And so coming to the job with like a sense of curiosity and wonderment and desire to learn and absorb information from every source possible keeps the job really fun, kind of knowing that you're going to learn a lot, and knowing you're going to have those moments of like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what's going on, and like to keep a curiosity in those moments rather than being overwhelmed by it, I think is just like a really special part of the job, and so to hold on to that.
Similar to the apprentices sharing what a good day feels like, Mariah, can you share with us a rewarding experience or moment with your time at Rock Bottom?
Yeah. I don't know if it's just because I like started kind of getting into farming and food so young, that like my whole, adult life has been in this, but every farm season I kind of look back and there's like one kind of overwhelming like lesson that I have been like hit over the head with, both kind of in professional skills ways, but also personally, which obviously there's like these moments of like, biting a first radish in the spring or raising livestock to slaughter and working with, the team. There's like these kind of crystallized moments of fulfillment, but I think ultimately, year after year and looking kind of big picture over my whole career, one of the most fulfilling things is that constant kind of learning and like echoing a lot of what the Apprentice says, like learning not only like tangible skills, but also learning about myself. And like while I'm growing and raising vegetables and livestock, I'm also like growing into the human I want to be. And that just like adds so much fulfillment and makes those like day in and day out. I mean, really it's the day in and day out like hard stuff that like makes that fulfillment.
I would say that for me, the biggest reward this season has been seeing our food go to people and go in people's bellies and the joy that that brings them. I mean, whether it's us cutting up an eggplant and sauteing it for our staff lunch and having us all get to try our first eggplant of the season, or in telling someone about the difference between a spiky cucumber and a smooth cucumber at the market. Any of those things are really exciting to me because it shows me that it is possible to grow food in this ridiculous climate, and it is possible to create community and build my community through that shared food. And then, I mean, having our events and our dinners here has just been incredibly special because it's all right here, and being able to show people the work that goes into it and see that appreciation for the product has just been incredible.
Yeah. I think for me, it's the people. I think farming attracts like these very like rugged, individualistic types, and I was like so that when I got into it, and I just wanted to be like alone in a field with my animals, self-sufficient. And so something that's been really unexpectedly fulfilling for me, especially with this farmer training program, is just how much I really do love like being a resource for other people and investing in other people and kind of taking on this mentorship role that like I never saw myself in. But it's not meaningful if it's only for you. And so like I love sharing that with folks, and just like now being in my third year of just seeing how much our crew members grow from the start of the season to the end is just so profound. Yeah, it's totally unexpected, but I can't even put words into how meaningful that is for me.
Yeah, I really can resonate with each of your guys' answers, and I think it kind of combines to make this not an addicting career path, but like something that like keeps you doing it. Awesome, great. Well, before we wrap up, I just have a few questions that I want to hear everyone's perspective on, and then we'll take questions from you all. And so, for some of you, you've been working in agriculture for almost a decade, others just a year or two. Do you guys think farming is a viable career, and have you thought about starting your own farm?
Who wants to start? I hope it's a viable career. I'm in too deep, y'all. Help me. No, I think it needs to be a viable career. I think we need strong food systems because they are such a core of community. I think we also have a lot of room to grow in actually making it a realistically viable career. It's incredibly difficult. And what we're seeing here at Rock Bottom Ranch is this very small scope of agriculture. There's just so many different types and scales and farm systems out there that are different. And until we, I think, address broader things that feed into our food systems, like rampant consumerism culture and systemic injustice, we're not really going to see kind of payoffs in like food security, food sovereignty, and farmers getting paid what they should for the work and the food that they produce.
I mean, I echo Jen completely and want to add that I don't know if it's a viable career option overall, but I have felt so incredibly privileged and lucky to be farming on this property for ACES. I think that the support systems that we have, I mean, just from within the organization to the broader community, are pretty unreal, and they run really deep. All of our supporters that show up to our events and check in with us at markets and really want to contribute has influenced my success and our success as a team incredibly. And so I know that that's possible to build on your own, but it's quite daunting. And so having the financial and the community support already built behind you with this organization has been really, really helpful.
I'll keep this short, but I think for a pretty significant percentage of my peers and mentors that I've had in my farming career, farming has not been a viable career for them. I think at a certain point, you hit a ceiling of pay, increase in responsibility, increase in like what you can learn and what somewhere that you're working can offer you. And so I think that pushes some people to start farms. But if you don't have an interest in kind of being an entrepreneur, I think then that causes you to be 32 and getting a new career, which is what I've seen a lot of my peers do. And like, I feel incredibly lucky that kind of positions, especially in middle management, have opened up when I've been ready for them and looking for them. But I've seen a lot of people kind of not be able to piece things together, and whether it's financially and they want to start families and can't do it on a farmer salary, or need to move somewhere to be care for parents or be closer to home, and there's not farms that they want to work for there. So I hope it's viable, but I think it takes obviously a lot of hard work, but I think it takes a lot of luck and a lot of privilege to make it so.
Any thoughts down here?
Sorry for being so cynical, new farmers. Yeah, it's, oh goodness. It's really hard to think of it as not being a viable career option because I really love it. I think another one of the challenges, unfortunately to bring up another one, is the seasonality of the work. Like my main focus right now is finding a job that can make me a lot of money so I can farm again next season. And that's like a very real concern for me, but it's also something that I'm really passionate about and combines a lot of my interests. And I surely hope that there's ways to make it viable, and there's a lot of mentors to look for, I think, too, that make it viable. Yeah. That's what I have to add.
Oh, goodness. That's a tough question. I think for me, I don't necessarily think of my relationship to farming as like a career path. For me, it was just more a direction that made sense for me as far as the person that I want to be and how I want to show up in the world and what I want to contribute. That being said, I would like to continue doing it in some capacity, and I feel really lucky to have been able to get the foundation in it here that I have, because I know that there are people out there that are doing, just like here, but all over the country and all over the world that are doing really great work in trying to figure out how farming can be a viable career, or at least a piece of local community that can support the people who do it as well as the people in that community. And So I really look forward to kind of exploring how that can look. And I just think that we don't even know what it could look like yet. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to in my future.
Yeah, I agree completely with HOLLIS in that we don't know what it's going to look like. And I think one of the problems in our system is that, like, sometimes we think of the question, is farming a viable career option, and do you want to have your own farm, as the same question, which they aren't. And that's like the ultimate goal, right? And when it's an inaccessible goal for a lot of people, but it also kind of ignores any other structural issues that we have in the industry, like Mariah talked about with middle management. And so I don't know the answer if it's viable. I hope it is. I think that the seasonality is a big play in that, like Shannon mentioned. This is my 4th seasonal gig in a row. And eventually, you know, you want to put down roots and you want to invest in where you are and the people around you and the plants around you. And so I think that I want it to be sustainable, but I think that we have to start being creative in what agriculture looks like and small-scale agriculture looks like. Because the idea that there is only, as there are in a lot of careers, but very visibly in agriculture, the role of owner and worker isn't really complex enough, and I think that there's a lot of flaws in that, that we are dynamic people and we can help be a part of solving. So I think maybe it'll be viable if these people put it into action.
So I'll kind of answer this question sequentially. Do I want to continue farming? I'll touch on that in a sec. But do I want to continue a career in the realm of agriculture? Absolutely. So agriculture doesn't have to look like farming. You know, once I get that street cred that I talked about earlier, you know, being a consultant, being a loaning officer, working at a nonprofit, an outreach coordinator, there's a lot of different career paths within agriculture that don't involve farming every day. But with that said, I could see myself farming, but not owning my own farm. I could see myself being a middle or senior manager and still working on the ground, but owning my own farm, I eventually would like to start a family. There is a lot of financial instability and risk that comes with farming, especially from someone that's not walking into you know, a generational operation. We'd have to take all the upfront expenses to start our own farm, and that's not something I'd personally like to take on with the family. Yeah, and I know Jen had mentioned that, you know, this is a microcosm of agriculture at large here at the ranch. But just to resonate, the common denominator kind of there is a thread here.
And I just wanted to add in one thing that Hannah said about being creative. I think that is definitely needed for farming to be a viable career. In like creating your own operation or working at one, I think more than just growing vegetables, selling vegetables, there needs to be like a more robust business plan and operation, because I think that's what makes it not financially viable, is when you're just selling products. I mean, some people can't make that financially viable, but I think adding creative other streams is definitely makes it potentially more successful. We'll see. Awesome. One final question. So stereotypically, the world of agriculture has been perceived to be very male-dominated. What has been the relationship of your gender to working in the field of agriculture?
Yeah, so I've been asked this season a few times, what's it like being the only male on the day-to-day, you know, on-the-ground operation? And I'm always kind of annoyed at that question and just surprised. I've never looked at this crew with gender in mind, I just see capable and compelling, compassionate individuals who get the job done at the end of the day. So, you know, whether it was, I don't know, I'm so dismissive with that question because it bothers me, because we are highly productive here, and we're more than capable. So it's humans here. It's not a gender label.
Yeah, it's been a challenging aspect for me personally. I identify, I'm cis female, and in speaking about this, I'm talking mostly about like cis male, cis female, traditional heteronormative terms, but whether it's been in year 1 or year 9, I unfortunately still feel like I consistently get a lot of dismissal, devaluation, and kind of like underestimation from male colleagues in the field. And that's whether I'm just like running errands at the feed store or representing myself professionally at conventions and things like that. And it's really disappointing. And I think when I was a much younger woman, when I started in my early 20s, I had this like idea that I really wanted to prove myself to them. So I was gonna like work that much harder so the men would take me seriously. And now on the other side of that, like, I don't care what y'all think. Like, I know like the value and worth of my work, and all of my merit comes from myself internally. I know what I've done at the end of the day. But that said, I think, I don't think it's coincidental then also that some of my strongest, most influential, and most meaningful mentorships have been women in the field as well. Because I think there's this kind of out of necessity and beautiful and kind of complicated thing that happens, that when you are sidelined by your identity, you find others who have also been sidelined by that same identity, and you kind of come together and form support networks so you can get it done regardless, even if you're not being supported by those around you. But imagine if you were, like how much more you could get done. I don't know.
Um, For me, this is an interesting question. We all did our pronouns at the beginning. I use they, them pronouns. That means that I'm non-binary. I don't fall into male or women or men. And so it's hard for me when I'm perceived the way that I am, and like doubly perceived differently because I'm not actually seen for who I am in the day in and the day out. And but for me, like my relationship to agriculture is so much tied into who I am and that identity for me, because a lot of my introduction to agriculture was with queer and trans community, because we can relate to animals and the land and plants in ways that are comfortable for us, and we get to just exist in these environments when usually our day in, day out, we aren't really seen. And so agriculture, I've seen so many like beautiful people of all different genders in agriculture, and I don't think that's a mistake. I think this is a field where our work can be valued regardless of how we present. And so I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the people all across the gender spectrum that I have met in agriculture, and that have made me feel welcome in these spaces. So.
All I have to say to add to that is that people of all genders have been farming for 12,000 years, as long as people have been farming. And I think that if we look at like a panel of farmers that looks like presenting all women or majority women, then, and that surprises us, like I think that's a bigger question about like what have we been taught, or what do we believe about the intersection of gender and labor and power, and why would that surprise us? And so I think that that's just a conversation that we need to have like with ourselves, and as we grow and progress in that way.
And I think like every single person on this stage, like no matter what kind of our gender identities and gender presentations are forced on a day-to-day basis to cultivate skills that might be kind of traditionally considered masculine or traditionally considered feminine. And so I think the job itself, because it's, you're using tools and you're, doing tough stuff and have to be strong, which is like, you know, society talks about as being traditionally male, but it's also like, you know, being detail oriented and caring a lot about a lot of living things, and caring about your coworkers and the soft skills, which I hate that word, soft skills, but and I think like farming creates like a space that like questions of gender and questions are like, you know, are such an oversimplification, because no matter what, like I'm allowed to present what it means to be like a strong woman to me in a multitude of different ways. And I'm sure Ray has been challenged in a million different ways about like how to present masculinity in a workspace. And that I think is just a really special component of farming, to create those spaces, to kind of echo some of what Hollis said.
Awesome. Any other thoughts?
I have one more thought,
Yeah.
because I always do. I'm sorry. Which is just that, like, on the notion of it, like, while we're talking about it, if you see a group of farmers at the farmer's market or you see us in the field, you don't have to greet us with, "Hey, ladies," because, like, you don't necessarily know. And I think that is something that, like, we're all learning throughout the course of the season and throughout the course of our lives. But maybe, "Hey, y'all." Y'all means all. Just, "Hey, y'all" is great.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah. Were there any questions jotted down on little program inserts?
What's woofing?
Worldwide
Opportunities for Organic Farming, I think is the acronym.
It's a organization that allows people to trade kind of labor for places to stay, work stay, and you can like different farms kind of like become woofer certified. Great. Okay. Ooh, this is a cool question. This one too, probably. But this one was easier to read quickly. What do you think about techno ag? And are there benefits by using drones and robotics to increase yield, efficiency, profit?
I'm sure that there are benefits in efficiency and production by using robots, but that's not why I farm, and that's not why I support farmers. I farm because I really love to have my hands in the dirt, to be on the ground with it, to take care of these living things, and I want to eat food that is produced by people who really care and are putting in that love and that effort. And I don't know that it's all about efficiency and production, because it's also about how you're taking care of the land and how you're taking care of your coworkers and how you're taking care of the things that you're growing. And so, yeah, I'm sure there are benefits, but that's not the benefit for me.
I love that answer, Juliet. Thank you. I think at the beginning of the season, Jen and Ray and myself were all sitting down with like the grazing plan for the year, and it was all just like notes and like printed out maps with like handwritten scratches and notes, and I thought that was like just like so tangible to see it there. And there's so many different like geospatial systems that you can have drones, and you can kind of see the land and see the pastures and like create super high-tech maps on grazing plans. And I think that's cool and would be like interesting to try out. But I also think like our little scratches on the paper work just as well. I don't know. I think like there's places where you can combine technology to improve your systems. But yeah, I don't think it's always entirely necessary. like Juliet said, to have like the highest amount of efficiency possible. And yeah.
I think often when people talk about like tech, and especially in agriculture or solving any kind of issue related to climate change, the assumption is like tech will save us, and we can engineer ourselves out of something, and we can just like hone systems a little bit better. And something that I've been kind of deconstructing in my own view of farming is that like kind of solution, like we can continue to find the perfect solution and use all of our resources and like engineer our way out of a problem. And instead I've been like looking at a lot about how indigenous land practices have been successful and could potentially be successful, and you know, not like humans have been feeding ourselves for a long time. And we've been using computers for a lot less. And so I think there's a lot of knowledge that we have kind of erased in modern society, in Western society, that also takes warranted, is warranted a really good look at and exploration of.
Yeah, I think to kind of wrap that question up, there's a ton of awesome technological advancements that I think are helpful to make the work more efficient. But I also think like robots growing your food or like growing food indoors without dirt is weird. But I'm excited about like other technological advancements to make my day-to-day easier. Great, so we have time for one more question, so I'm just going to choose one. Great, this one. So it's about scale. You mentioned the financials, so kind of a two-part question. One, how viable are small traditional farms for families and for producing what the growing populations need? And then two, how can mega farms become more sustainable? I think we can answer these questions with our limited perspectives because that's what we have. So this is from our perspective of how viable a small traditional farm for families can be. How viable are they for producing what the growing population needs? So like small scale agriculture for the massive world.
I'm getting volunteered. Oh gosh. I mean, I think we need farms of all scales and sizes. So I absolutely support that. I think integrating like the practices that we use here on a big scale is obviously great. Then we're going to be making that much more of an impact. I also think that we need, I don't know, I've just seen so much kind of what I perceive as damage done to our food systems and our food workers and our animals and the land, all of it, through this kind of like process of centralizing our food systems kind of to these like large swaths of land and centralizing our processing systems and kind of consolidating across all sectors. And that's been really unfortunate and has really done no more to feed families and feed all of our growing populations than it really has done to drive down prices and drive down subsidies for kind of commodity crops that like humans ultimately aren't even eating, and whereas like a lot of our money and our farm bills are kind of sent to. I lost myself here.
It's a broad question.
Yeah, I think farms of all scales need to be operable. And yeah, we need to start valuing food, farmers, land, animals better. When you get really cheap food at the grocery store, that is at the expense of somebody else. Somebody's missing out, the workers, the animals, land. Food does not cost that cheap.
I feel like there is a part of that question about our scale and about small farms feeding people. And I think that it's underestimated how much a community garden can do, or a block in a city. And I think that that also goes beyond the food that's produced to the people that it brings in and the ways that it gets people involved in their spaces and in their environment and with their food. And so I think that, just like Jen said, we need to be spreading out how we grow food and growing it around the whole country instead of just the middle where there's a lot of land, and thinking about what it can mean, even if it's not all of the food that you need for a meal or for a week. I think that growing small can do a lot for a lot of people.
Any more comments?
We grow a crazy amount of food here. We do.
Yeah, to tap us on our back. We grow a lot of food on a very small parcel of land, and feed a lot of people and make a profit doing it. And so I think obviously there's a lot of things at play to make all of those things true, but there's people doing it. And I'm so inspired by not only us, but a bunch of other farms in the valley, around the state, all around the country that are also all doing it.
Awesome. Well, thank you to the folks on the stage, and thank you for all of you for coming out tonight. There's just one final thing we want to share with you. So in addition to the apprenticeship program and the stewardship program that kind of fall into our farmer training program, ACES has also created a ag-specific website that went live today. So you should definitely check it out. It's acesagriculture.org. And it is a site that is filled with beautiful photos, a lot of written content, and how-to videos. And so the website was kind of created with other farmers in mind, though I think consumers would also enjoy learning about it. But it's kind of to show how we farm at Rock Bottom Ranch. And so what practices we're doing, tips and tricks, and I don't know, the videos are entertaining because it's us talking, and we're not professional actors and actresses.
If you didn't get enough tonight.
And so you should check it out. We're really proud of it. We've been spending a lot of time in it. There's been a ton of people at ACES who have contributed to the beautiful website. And then I just wanted to thank Sarah Cherry specifically. She has headed up the entire website creation and has edited and created all of the videos for us. So you should check that out when you get home, acesagriculture.org. And thanks again for coming out. We appreciate you all supporting us and supporting local agriculture.